The North Atlantic was a ruthless beast that winter. Cold, endless, and downright merciless. Waves surged like monstrous black towers, crashing with the thunderous roar of 1,000 angry gods, swallowing the horizon in a chaotic frenzy of white foam and mist. And somewhere within that tumultuous storm, history tucked away one of its wildest secrets. It was December of 1944, a time when the world was fixated on the drama unfolding in mainland Europe. Meanwhile, a small British convoy was gearing up to leave the icy grips of Newfoundland's docks. This mission had a name, Operation Trident. On the surface, it was your standard supply escort, the usual paperwork, routine cargo manifests, and coded radio chatter. But oh boy, the whispers among the crew painted a different picture entirely. They were transporting something valuable, secret, and possibly downright dangerous. 7 ships stood ready that fateful morning. 3 destroyers, 2 merchant cargo vessels, and 2 submarines meant for stealthy escort duties. Their decks were encased in thick sheets of ice, their flags snapping stiffly in the biting Atlantic wind. Engineers hustled about, frantically scraping frost from the communication panels, while officers barked orders over the howling wind, their voices swallowed by the ocean's roar. What the hell was the cargo? Some claimed it was advanced radar technology. Others whispered about stolen German research, maybe even prototypes that could turn the tide of the war in a heartbeat. But among the lower-ranking sailors, a chilling rumor took flight, one that made their blood run cold. They said the ships carried something that should have never left the mainland. At 6:45 that morning, the lead ship, HMS Bristol Wind, signaled the start of the operation. The horn echoed across the harbor like a ghostly wail cutting through the fog. One by one, each vessel responded, their engines rumbling to life like a beast awakening from a long slumber. The convoy embarked on its slow, eerie journey eastward, straight into the maw of the Atlantic. Some crew members kept diaries, though most would never see the light of day again. But Vane wasn't buying it. The sounds didn't fit the ice's movement. They came at precise intervals, almost like Morse code, as if something was trying to respond. By afternoon, the sky darkened unnaturally like a bad omen. A thick, eerie mist began to rise from the water's surface, curling around the ships like smoke from a fire no one could see. Visibility plummeted. The escort subs faded from sight. Radio check-ins continued, but voices grew faint, distant, as if the very air was swallowing their words. At 23:47 hours, the last confirmed signal blared from HMS Bristol Wind. Coordinates were logged near latitude 50 for north. A brief confirmation tone echoed, and then silence. When dawn cracked open the horizon, the North Atlantic lay like a ghost town, eerily calm, as if the tempest that had raged through the night was just a figment of our wildest imaginations. I mean, seriously, it was as if the storm had never even bothered to show up. Meanwhile, the patrol aircraft from RAF Coastal Command were up there, cruising over the shipping lanes like they owned the place, expecting to spot the Trident convoy, chugging along like a well-oiled machine heading east. But lo and behold, the radar screens were as blank as my mind on a Monday morning. Not a single echo, not even a dot. At first, the operators were like, what the hell? Must be a technical glitch. So they fiddled with the equipment, cranked up the signal strength like they were tuning a guitar, and waited with bated breath. Still, nothing. Can you believe it? An emergency dispatch shot off to the Royal Navy's command office in London faster than a hot knife through butter. At 09:00 hours, Admiral Townsend, with a brow furrowed like a storm cloud, reviewed the report. His first thought? Sabotage. Maybe those sneaky German U-boats were up to no good. But here's the kicker. There were no distress calls, no explosions, and absolutely no wreckage. Just a deafening, eerie silence. By midday, the call for a search and rescue operation echoed through the halls of command. 2 reconnaissance planes, a Sunderland and a Catalina, were dispatched to the convoy's last known coordinates, which felt like sending them into the Bermuda Triangle. The sea was as smooth as a freshly polished mirror, the kind of calm that sends shivers down the spine of even the most seasoned pilots. The sun glinted off the water like it was made of dull metal. And there, lurking beneath the waves, something flickered ominously. The pilot of the Catalina later jotted down his observations in his logbook with a shaky hand. A shadow, long, narrow, gliding against the current. At first, I thought it was a whale, but it was too angular, too damn precise. Then, as we swooped lower, the shadow fragmented, 7 pieces, like the ocean was having a memory flashback of what it had devoured. They dropped marker buoys like confetti, but guess what? No debris surfaced, no oil slicks, no lifeboats. It was as if the entire fleet had been wiped off the face of the earth. Poof, gone. Back in London, the Admiralty had the audacity to declare Operation Trident missing in action. Families were notified with the gentleness of a sledgehammer. And the news. It never even made it to the papers. Wartime censorship was on high alert. To the world, it was as if the convoy had never even existed. But within the shadowy corridors of intelligence, whispers began to swirl like a storm. Encrypted messages flew back and forth late into the night. Theories bubbled up like a witch's cauldron. One officer, Commander Ellis, allegedly said during a briefing, "We lost 7 ships in one night. No storm, no battle." For nearly a decade, the mystery of Operation Trident was buried under layers of silence. Officially, the mission never happened. Unofficially, it became a ghost story whispered among naval veterans. A tale no one wanted to believe, but everyone had heard. Then, in 1951, something extraordinary surfaced. A Swedish trawler named Helga Marie was fishing near Gotland Island. When its nets caught on something heavy deep below, the crew struggled for nearly an hour before finally pulling a large, corroded object to the surface. At first, they thought it was part of a shipwreck, but when they cleaned it, a name appeared faintly engraved on the metal plate: HMS Bristol Wind. The trawler captain immediately contacted naval authorities. Within 24 hours, a Royal Navy recovery vessel arrived. What they found attached to that piece of metal would reignite one of the darkest mysteries in maritime history. Inside the corroded section was a sealed message cylinder, still intact despite the decades underwater. When the container was opened at the British Naval Command, the message inside was remarkably well preserved, written in pencil, dated March 2, 1945, and signed by Lieutenant Harold Fenwick. It reads simply: "Engines failing, compass malfunctioning, lights beneath us, moving in formation, crew in panic, water glowing blue, feels like being pulled down by something alive, not natural current. If this is found, tell them the sea is not empty." Those final 6 words, "the sea is not empty," became the most studied line in naval mystery history. The handwriting was verified. The message was authentic. But no one could explain what the lieutenant had seen, or how a sealed message tube survived intact for so many years. Researchers proposed theories: magnetic anomalies, unknown underwater currents, even secret Nazi experiments. Some said the fleet had entered a previously unmapped trench, a void so deep that sonar could not return a signal. Others claimed the convoy had stumbled into a natural gas eruption zone, a phenomenon capable of sinking ships in seconds by reducing water density. But one theory, quietly discussed in classified naval meetings, suggested something far stranger. In late 1945, Soviet submarines operating in the Baltic reported sonar interference near the same coordinates where Trident vanished. Their instruments recorded rhythmic pulses, not random, but patterned like a code. When these pulses were analyzed decades later, they matched the Morse rhythm of the Bristol Wind's final distress call. Scientists dismissed it as a coincidence, but historians began to suspect a haunting possibility: that the convoy hadn't been destroyed, but displaced. The frigid winds of the Baltic howled like a pack of wild wolves across the barren waters as the Evacuation reached its absolutely breaking point. What started as a desperate lifeline had transformed into a haunting parade of phantoms, ships disappearing one after the other, into the ominous mist like they were swallowed whole by some vengeful sea monster. The Wilhelm Gustloff had already been claimed by the abyss, dragging down thousands of souls with her. But she wasn't the last to be consumed. No, sir. Just after her tragic demise, the General von Steuben set sail, loaded with over 4,000 wounded soldiers and desperate refugees. They thought the convoy route was still safe. What the hell were they thinking? Just after the clock struck midnight, the Soviet submarine S-13, the very same beast that had sunk the Gustloff, struck again with a vengeance. 2 torpedoes blasted through the hull like a hot knife through butter, and in less than 15 minutes, the Steuben was nothing but a memory, a ghost in the dark waters. The sea was merciless, my friends. Those who somehow managed to claw their way out of the wreckage faced a chilling adversary, the bone-numbing cold that turned brave men into lifeless statues in mere moments. Out of thousands on board, a pitiful fewer than 300 souls managed to survive. By this point, the Baltic Sea had morphed into a floating graveyard, a dark testament to despair. Yet, the German Navy pressed on with the Evacuation battling through ice, storms, and the relentless enemy fire. Each voyage became a high-stakes gamble with fate itself. Sailors whispered tales of a cursed sea, haunted by the anguished cries of those it had devoured. Fishermen would later tell spine-chilling stories of foggy nights where they could still hear those eerie voices' screams, echoing across the water, as if the very fabric of time refused to release its grip on the lost. For the survivors, every crossing became an act of sheer defiance, not just against the Soviet forces, but against the treacherous ocean itself. They were fleeing a crumbling empire, fueled by one desperate wish to see land once more, just one damn time. But not everyone would make it to the other side, because the final chapter of Operation Hannibal, the grand, tragic finale of the Ghost Convoy, was still lurking on the horizon. And when it finally arrived, it would etch itself into the annals of history as one of the most haunting maritime disappearances ever recorded. As April 1945 rolled around, the world was flipping upside down, plunging headfirst into utter chaos. The Third Reich was crumbling like a house of cards, and the Baltic evacuation was staggering toward its heartbreaking finale. Picture this: the last fleet, a ragtag assembly of freighters, passenger ships, and military escorts, shoved off from Gotenhafen beneath a sky ablaze with the fiery glow of distant artillery. Among them was the Goya, a makeshift transport ship crammed to the brim with over 7,000 desperate refugees and wounded soldiers. I mean, can you even imagine? The ship plunged into the pitch-black night, obeying blackout orders, flanked by smaller naval vessels like a scene out of a damn movie. But out in the freezing abyss, the sea was about to stir with a vengeance. At precisely 11:50 p.m., a Soviet submarine caught a whiff of them. Two torpedoes shot through the water like a bat out of hell, and then, bam. Within seconds, the Goya erupted in a cataclysmic explosion. The blast was so ferocious it literally split the ship in half. In a matter of minutes, 7, to be exact, the entire vessel vanished beneath the unforgiving waves like a mirage lost to the ocean's fury. Out of those 7,000 souls aboard, fewer than 200 managed to cling to life. It became one of the deadliest sinkings in human history, a tragedy that eclipsed even the Titanic and the Lusitania. And then, silence. When dawn broke, the Baltic was eerily still. The convoy that once symbolized hope for millions was swallowed whole by war, secrecy, and the relentless sea. The official records, though, they would later downplay the catastrophic losses as the world fixated on the final throes of the war. But for decades, the families of the lost clung to a haunting question: what the hell really happened to the ghost convoy of the Baltic Sea? Fast forward to 2002, when divers finally stumbled upon some of the wrecks, lying deep in the shadows, perfectly preserved in the icy grip of the cold. Rusting hulls, frozen lifeboats, and ghostly corridors untouched since that fateful night. It was as if time itself had encased them in a watery tomb, a chilling reminder of the past. The Baltic Sea still guards its secrets like a jealous lover. And the saga of Operation Hannibal remains an eerie echo, a stark reminder that in the theater of war, even the promise of salvation can be cloaked in unspeakable tragedy. The ghost convoy sails on, not across the waves, but through the corridors of memory, forever resonating in the depths of history. What a damn story, right?